I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championship.
Something stupid is coming out of his mouth.
I don't know. Maybe it's just my age. He needs his vote polled immediately. And of course, yes, a season like this has to have a name.
Let's talk about something good about Justin Frye. What are you doing?
The season of dreams. Ohio State, my guys, are either the best or the second best program in the history of college football.
This guy is a bonehead. They love him.
I question your judgment as an adult. I really do.
I was a total hater. I know that for a fact, and I just don't get it.
Get us back our sleeves.
And say, bring me that. That's the one I want.
And welcome into Juckonbucks on a Monday, a Victory Monday, and it's fun to have fun, isn't it? I had fully intended on doing a post-game show when I got home Sunday, but I was up till 5. The drive home, I was exhausted. My throat's still killing me, man. So I got home and I just kind of watched everybody else doing their thing. Rewatched the game. Well, didn't watch the broadcast of the game because I hadn't seen it on TV yet. Wanted to listen to the commentary and see how it came through on the television side. Watched the Clemson Texas game because I had missed that. And we got a lot to get to, man. Ton of blowouts, really 4 blowouts. I mean, if you count the Clemson Texas blowout, Clemson came back a little bit in the end, but a lot of conversation around that in the playoffs in general, and I got some thoughts. Brian Hartline and Ross Bjork chose to take on Clay Travis publicly. Lane Kiffin made a jerk of himself again. And I'm still riding high off a Rocky Top, which I can't get out of my head. And we got a game in a week, and I'm not really ready to go over to Oregon yet. I want to celebrate a little more, but the Rose Bowl tickets hit the Apple Wallet yesterday. I'm going, baby. Like anybody who's making that trip, hit me up. Juck Eyes or Duck Eyes, whatever. Let's get a picture, whatever, man. It's been very difficult for me deciding on what I want to do with this playoff. Like what games do I want to go to? You got potentially 4 games, increasingly more important, but I've never been to the Rose Bowl. And what could be better than a classic Rose Bowl matchup? Pac-12, Big Ten. Now we're both in the Big Ten. But after the game we just watched in round 1 of the playoffs, everything that's going on in the Big Ten right now, the Ducks coming in, winning it their first year, the recruiting wars we've had, it's just got to be done. I got to go. So my thought was heading into Tennessee. If the Buckeyes won, I was tempted to wait and maybe try to go to Texas or the national championship game. But after what we just saw, I got to go to the Rose Bowl. Like if not now, when? You know what I mean? So I'm excited as heck about that, but not ready to move on from Tennessee. And I've not had a live show since. So I definitely want to talk to my pals in the chat. Good morning, everybody. Great to see you, man. What an awesome time. What an awesome time to be a Buckeye, man. It feels great today. It really does. We've seen the entire tenor of the country do a 180 on Ohio State and on Ryan Day, the entire coaching regime. And man, what a bounce back performance, you know, in life in general. And I hate to talk like this because he always talks like this and I kind of roll my eyes, but he's right. Like in life in general, it's about how you respond. And he responded, his kids responded for him, the coaching staff, like everybody responded and rallied together. And I'm interested to see how the fan base rallies. What's the tenor this week? What happens on that side of things? And we'll talk some more about that later. But what a unique game. And if you guys want to get in today, I'll get as many of you in as possible. But go ahead and leave your questions. We got a busy week. Dylan's coming on this week at some point. I'm going to have my buddy Sam from College Football with Sam on at some point this week to talk about the playoffs. And on the Oregon side, I'm going to do a show with my buddy Ryan Winters from Sports Chat 503. And that's our preferred Ducks channel over here. Check them out. And that'll probably be on Thursday or Friday. So I'll let you guys know, and maybe I'll try to stream that to this channel too. But it's just us today because I didn't get my regular post-game show. And we've had some time to think about it and watch that broadcast now. And you know I'm a sucker for a story. We've never seen anything quite like what we just saw Saturday, and I don't think we'll ever see it again. All the factors that led into that game, everything surrounding it, everything at stake, the Michigan game, the 4 years in a row, a home playoff game, so many fans out on the current regime, but most of those who are out saying they can be bought back in if this team shows them they can get it right. The Tennessee fans their first ever playoff experience. They love their coach, who has finally brought them back to a competitive level. Ohio State's SEC record, a Southern team playing up north in December. The cold, man, it was freezing. They came out with their shirts off. A lot of mixed reactions on that move. I'm curious to see what you guys thought about it. The first ever game in December, the first ever playoff game at the Shoe. The game plan Ohio State had the previous timeout, the new lights in the stadium, and the effort to upgrade the in-stadium performance or atmosphere in general, the lack of night games that we have, the atmosphere was amazing. The lights added a ton. I think we're well on our way under Ross Bjork's leadership to improving that. The issue is the lack of night games, right? The 3 weeks we spent talking about the Michigan game, and I didn't really get into Tennessee too much between the Michigan game and Tennessee till like the final week, and I feel like nobody did. And even when we all got into the Tennessee game, it was still kind of mixed with the feelings about the Michigan game. Ryan Day's very strange interview with Dom Taberi, where he came off as very rattled. All of this stuff, man. And then Saturday, we got to see kind of a visual representation of what the fan base felt heading into that game. And after my little 20-minute recap after the game, I got several comments, and a few of which pointed out, Juck, don't forget, they got our code, as if to say that's part of the reason there were so many Tennessee fans there. That code ended up being totally inconsequential, guys. Like, some people refused to pay the increase on the secondary market to buy tickets. Most people pay it. Some people don't. But that code was for season ticket holders, and it gave you the opportunity to purchase 6 face value tickets. That meant if a Tennessee fan had that code, they could go get those tickets at face value, the ones that got a hold of that code, which means more Tennessee fans come, right? Well, the price for the tickets dropped and dropped and dropped, and they were close to face value by Tuesday or Wednesday, and they actually were below face value by Friday, which means the fact that they got a hold of the code for those face value tickets ended up meaning absolutely nothing in the end. And any Tennessee fan who wanted to come and get in for less than $100 if they wanted to make that drive could, because our side wasn't buying. And in the Shoe, we saw a visual representation of the discontent leading into that game. No doubt about it. And as someone who does a show 5 days a week about Ohio State football, I recognize that I talk to a small psycho set of the Ohio State fan base, right? Like, I call us the 0.002. We're just a very small, diehard, hyperbolic portion of the fan base. We're all in. So I'm very careful to say things about the fan base as a whole, as a sweeping generalization, when I understand that I'm talking to a small set of you guys. And our opinions don't always square with the fan base at large. So I know the general percentage of how the psychos feel, right? How we feel. And the number that were out on the regime but said that they could be bought back in, and the number who were straddling the line hoping that they buy them back in, and the number of you guys that feel like anybody who thinks they want Ryan Day gone is insane, or there's nothing better out there, so we're better to stand pat. Like, I get all that, and I get a good feel of how everybody's feeling around here and around the podcast set. Those of us who watch these shows every day, read the websites, get on the message boards. I got the feel of that, but I was not sure how the broader fan base felt. Your average Joe Blow, who's not quite as dialed in as us, but goes to games. And a lot of you guys mentioned in my comments the other night that Herb Street was talking on the broadcast, and I didn't see it at the time, right, because I was at the game, but I've watched it, and I watched what he said, and I found the most interesting part he was talking about was the comment he made about Skull Session. And he said that Skull Session was half empty for a playoff game, which is incredibly wild. He said the coaching staff was blown away by it. And if the coaching staff truly was blown away by that, I don't know if clearly they've not been paying attention, or they don't quite understand the severity of what's going on outside of the Woody, which is probably a good thing, right? You wouldn't want them diving into all that. There's a lot of negativity out there, but that's a real disconnect that they were stunned by that. But Herbie said, I don't know what it is. Is it the cold? Is it the Michigan game? Like, he's such a smart aleck, man. And I'm saying that nicely because my mom's watching. But he went on to talk about Ohio State And the lunatic fringe of the Ohio State fan base that used to be 8 to 10% and is now 15 to 20%. 20% is not fringe. That's not what fringe means. And the irony here is, as he's talking about the lunatic fringe earlier in the day, he said in 29 years of doing game day, he's never seen an opposing fan base represented so much at the game day set. And while he was making that statement about the lunatic fringe, he was literally looking down at a stadium that had a visual representation in feminine orange of how Ohio State fans feel about the current regime. I mean, here's a picture from I took some pictures and I found one that I think represents a little better. This is what the east side of the stadium looked like. And as you can see, I mean, it's 40% orange, very, very orange. So the north end and the east end, just tons of Tennessee fans. I was in the west side, and thankfully, just about 10% of orange over there. But the dude was staring at the evidence. Like, that's not the lunatic fringe. The lunatic fringe cannot move the needle like that. That is the fan base as a whole. Lunatic fringe doesn't have the power to do things like that. And if you're someone who's been to a lot of Ohio State games, but did not attend on Saturday, guys, it was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing walking around outside the stadium, walking through the parking lots. It felt like a neutral site game, but not one against a team like Miami, one against a team whose fans actually show up. Tennessee fans were everywhere. And even as much as we heard it all week, I did not really believe it. Like, I thought there'd be a lot. I thought I'd be annoyed. Maybe I was just hoping to be pleasantly surprised, but seeing it in person, I was just infuriated. I was just infuriated. And I know a lot of Ohio State fans that were there. And even if they felt furious about the Michigan game or even about the current regime, even if they would prefer a regime change, like, there was a galvanization in the Buckeye fans that were at that game. And it felt like we were under attack. And it made for such an odd dynamic in the stadium, in the fear of losing in our own stadium, in front of and amongst those people, the Neyland North on the Apple Maps. They changed the name on Wikipedia. They posted the route they were going to take the goalpost to the Olentangy. The big boy on their team from East Memphis who was going to plant the flag. They had the guy picked out who was going to do it. Like, all of that. And just imagining losing in front of those loudmouths, like right there amongst them. And they were so loud in the concourse. It's great to be a Tennessee Volunteer. Rocky Top in our stadium. They were all singing it. And it was just infuriating. And the 70 to 75,000 Buckeye fans put on a performance like I've never seen in the Horseshoe. I was so happy I went to see that. Like, it was something, a really cool moment, a very galvanizing moment. And part of the reason that many people were so worried about this Tennessee game is they thought that we were going to see a repeat performance of the offensive game plan from the Michigan game. And it's natural to feel that way because it's the most recent game we saw. And I said to myself, we saw 12 games. 11 of them didn't look like that. Just one did. Well, Nebraska kind of resembled it as well. But just because that game was the most recent one, I'm choosing to think that game was just in and of itself a one-off. And the game is clearly in the head coach's head. And Day is a guy who likes to use little phrases. And he picks ones that, like the one for this year, for instance, is leave no doubt. That's kind of been the mantra all year. But he also has little ones that he uses for like 2 weeks, and then he cycles in a new one. And the phrase he was using leading into the Tennessee game for like 2 weeks was, we need to maximize our strengths and minimize our deficiencies. And he said it like 4 times in the 3 media sessions he had in the week prior to the game. And I usually can't stand his little buzzwords because he often uses them to deflect a question. And it's usually a question that I want answered, like a good one. He'll pull out one of those, and it's like the ultimate gotcha. I gave you my slogan. I'm moving on. But I really hated hearing that particular one after that Michigan game, maximize our strengths and minimize our deficiencies, because it felt like in that game, he was bound and determined to maximize his deficiencies and minimize his strengths. But after about the 4th time, and then the conversation that Jim Knowles had with the media, it was all about Tennessee's tempo. The media talked to the players. It was all about Tennessee's tempo, how Ohio State was going to deal with it. And it just got me thinking and really just angry about how intentionally slow they chose to run this Buckeye offense all year. And my thought was, in this Tennessee game, they're going to break that format and they're going to come out no huddle right off the rip and let Will Howard sling it around. They're going to go fast, hit the backside of the backfield. That's what I thought we were going to see. And the pace of play this year has been so damn puzzling. And again, this is one of the things that drives people nuts about Day. Decisions like this. But he broke mold. He broke mold. You know, who are the teams that want to go slow, hold the ball, use all of the clock, huddle every play? Like, that's every game plan you've ever heard from an opponent who goes into a game and is overmatched. They want to keep the ball out of their opponent's hand, win time of possession, run clock. Like, it makes all the sense in the world to do that when you're overmatched. With offensive weapons like Ohio State has, hard-earned offensive weapons, long recruiting battles, like roster retention money, bringing in transfers. You go through all that, and then you minimize your strengths. This is exactly what he was doing. So you want to maximize your advantage. You want to get the ball into those guys' hands, and you want to use every available opportunity you can, not slow down the pace and give them less opportunities. Now, he's given reasons as to why he's done this. He's talked about the communication, the in-helmet communication, how it's different. Talked about Will Howard looking the guys in the eyes in the huddle. Talking about less plays over the course of the season keeps them fresher at the end of the season. But I strongly suspect a lot of the reason he wanted to do this was part of a change in identity of the team and of perception of the team, to be a tough football team, to play a little more hard-nosed, a little more of a classic style Buckeye team. And that theory may have sounded crazy that I thought that, right? And I think that when we saw him bang his head against the wall against Michigan and essentially decide to lose that game rather than win it because he wasn't going to stop trying to look tough, it might just be the truth. That this was all about trying to change the identity of the team, and that's why he slowed things down so much. That's why he huddled so much. Like, I just can't think of any other reason why you would do that with the weapons that you have. Let's not forget, talked all week about Chip Kelly being the innovator of going fast, picking up the pace, and him being his quarterback. Like, that's these guys' DNA. Ohio State football DNA is how they were running the offense all year, but their DNA is to put defenses on their heels, give their talent every advantage and opportunity they can, being aggressive. And we didn't see him all year really test this machine that they've put together. They put together a machine. They spent countless hours recruiting, coaching, dollars, and they're worried about snap counts, man. Get it out there, speed it up, let them roll. And against Tennessee, I thought that's what they would do, and they did just that. No huddle, tempo. They tested the machine, and when they came out in possession one and started going no huddle immediately, I grabbed my son by the coat, started shaking him. They're doing it. They're doing it. And he knew exactly what I was talking about because I made him watch my shows last week. But they tested the machine. They tested the machine to see how hot it could run, and they trusted their quarterback to be a dude and let it rip. And he was 24 of 29, 311 yards with an 82% completion percentage, which has been his strength all year, in the top 2 or 3 of all quarterbacks in college football all year, threw 2 touchdowns. Forget that pick. That was such garbage. That pick was such garbage. But that first score, with the tension in the building with those Vols fans, it felt like the opening score of a national championship game. And then the second score, it was pandemonium. And that third touchdown, 21-point lead in the first quarter, it shocked all those loudmouth Tennessee fans who thought that SEC badge on their jersey meant they were going to walk in. They had no fear at all. Ryan Day's soft. Well, they absolutely got destroyed in one quarter by soft Ryan Day. Ohio State didn't need another point after that first quarter to beat them. And boy, they are having a meltdown, man. They are having an absolute meltdown and have resorted to attacking the shoe, attacking Columbus online, talking about the most expensive roster in sports history, making up stories like they've had urine thrown on them, and Ohio State fans were cursing their young children. It's just a terrible look for the coping Tennessee fans. But it looked like heading into the halftime at 21-10 that we might see, a classic tightening up. And there was definitely some, you could feel it in the stadium heading into the half, that there was a little bit of fear that we might see what we've seen before, playing a good team, letting them get back in. And then they came out in the second half. Tennessee it was the longest halftime ever, man. I could not wait to get that over with. But Tennessee had the ball coming out of the half. They picked up one first down in the defense that was just sensational all night. They were amazing. I think they gave them one first down, get the ball back. The Buckeye defensive line versus that Tennessee offensive line was it was the story of the week for me. This was Thursday's show. Like, it was all about the Buckeye defensive line versus their offensive line, which was a place where I thought the Bucks could have an advantage. And that man right there, Tyleek, was awesome. Everybody talking about Jack and JT, and they were great. But Tyleek ate those dudes in the middle, and it was fantastic. Cody was excellent. Lathan Ransom was excellent. And Caleb Downs, man. Caleb Downs is so good that he gets tiger bounces. You remember Tiger Woods in his prime, obviously the best, but it always felt like, yeah, he was the best. And he also got the best bounces. He'd hit it in the woods, it would bounce back on the fairway. No matter where he hit it, it was a great lie. Caleb fumbles that punt, just pops right back into his hands. It's like this. That's how good that dude is. That's just what happens when you're that good and you put in that much time. Good things happen to you. But that defense gave the Buckeyes the ball back in that first touchdown in the second half. From that point on, it was just a celebration. The makeshift offensive line, Luke Montgomery, what a game for him. And he ended up playing about 31 snaps, but it was more than just, playing well. He was so fired up. Every TV timeout, and so was Josh Fryer, which was awesome to see. But the guards played relatively good against a couple of 320, 340-pound interior guys on Tennessee's defensive line, which was the best defensive line in the SEC. They told us all the last couple of weeks, heading up, that's the best defensive line in the SEC. I watched the film of that defensive line against Georgia, and those dudes mauled the Georgia offensive line. The Buckeye offensive line, without Seth, without Simmons, was able to really control for the most part, not give up a single sack to that vaunted Tennessee defensive line. And that best defense in the SEC absolutely got torched by Will Howard. And of course, the Buckeye receivers, total mismatch, absolute mismatch. That's the best defense in the SEC. What would have happened if we saw this offense the entire year? And again, that's the part that you're just like, what are we doing here? But as it turns out, Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, Dante Thornton, Chris Brazel, they're just not JJ Meck and Carnell Tate. And counting on them to beat the Buckeye defense, it wasn't going to work. Nico, that dude's a gamer, man. That dude's a gamer. He had nothing to work with, running for his life the whole time. And I think he's going to be pretty damn good. You can certainly see the difference in the ball coming out of his hand versus a guy like Will Howard. Just totally different. And he'll be a good one in time. But that was such a mismatch. It was such a mismatch. It was a coaching mismatch. Everything on the field was a mismatch. And I think it's very surprising, particularly the trenches. I was very concerned about the trenches. I really thought that this was going to be a stalemate, and on both sides of the ball, the Bucks were going to have to do something a little special, get a little bit of luck, really play their very best game, and they did play a great game on both sides, but they just dominated up front. And what does it say about this team moving forward that they were able to do that? what does it say about Justin Fry that he was able to get this offensive line playing like that in now the biggest game of the year, and each successive game will be the biggest game of the year? I think it says a ton, man. I think it says a ton. And a guy I've been extremely critical of in his player acquisition aspect of his job, which is 51% of his job, according to his boss. The other 49, man, that was unbelievable. Pretty damn impressive, particularly when you're rotating guards in. Like, that's a lot. Everybody was pretty shook up. Like, what is this going to look like? How's this going to go? It pretty much went without a hitch. So, moving forward, how do we feel about that offensive line, which we were very concerned about after you just went up against the best defensive line in the SEC? Who's potentially out there with great defensive lines? Well, our next opponent certainly has a great defensive line. Texas has a fantastic defensive line. Notre Dame has a really good defensive line. Penn State has a good everybody out there has a really good defensive line. But after just seeing that performance, I think the confidence level has to be way up from where it was heading into this Tennessee game. Not just in the Woody, like they got to feel on cloud nine. They know now that they can do it against anybody. But from all of us, as we're looking forward, I feel so much more confident about that offensive line. But I'm positive there's some people who said that they were out on the regime, out on Ryan Day, out on everybody, that are maybe downplaying this, not ready quite yet. And I know that there are definitely some people who said that they could be bought back in with a run in the playoffs after that loss to Michigan, who probably saw that game and are feeling like, okay, I was overreacting. And I am really curious to see what a lot of you guys think in the comments and in the chat. How are we feeling, man? Like, if you were someone who said, I can be bought back in, what do you need to see? Do you need to see more of this? Or seeing that the other night was like, okay, I'm in, let's go. I'm excited again. The stink of that Michigan game is out of my mind. We'll worry about that in the off season. And it's certainly a discussion we have to have. But for now, this is about these playoffs, and this is awesome. Let's go. Let's go to the Rose Bowl. Let's go to Texas. Like, how are we feeling? You can look at it one of two ways. You can be pretty positive about this, right? And I'll tell you straight up, I came into this feeling in more of the camp of like, look, I'm ready for a regime change unless these guys can show me, this coaching staff, that they can do something in this playoff. And I know that a regime change isn't coming, and I'm going to support my team and be positive about my team, but it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to actively defend this coaching staff. I'm not going to stick my neck out for them. Like, that's all gone unless they can put this together and make a run. And it's not because you lose a game. You're going to lose a game. It's because of the way that went down. I felt was so disrespectful that I just can't get over it. I can't get over it. And when you look at the offense, what we just saw against Tennessee, the people who are saying that you guys are crazy for wanting Ryan Day gone, like, that proved their point, right? That's how they feel. On the flip side, the people who were saying they wanted him gone are saying the same thing. They're saying that proved my point as well. And what they mean, of course, is you had that at your disposal all year, and you chose not to show it or not to even attempt it until your job was on the line. Makes no sense at all. So this is kind of the dichotomy of what we're working with around here. And it is, without a doubt, the most interesting position a head coach of a major college football program has ever been in. A 10-2 season, you lose to your rival, which anywhere else in the country is a bad loss, but it doesn't make for a bad year. That's only us and them that it makes for a bad year. And fans talking about getting rid of you, the AD coming out defending you, all the while you're entering into the playoffs. Like, it's the most unique situation I think we've ever seen a college football coach in. It really is. Certainly makes it interesting doing what I do, which is talk to you guys every day. And it's always very interesting to see what you have to say. And I am going to bring you guys in here to talk a little more about it and get some of your opinions on it. But I would like to remind you to please like the video. I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she was so excited that she wanted to talk about the game. And I told her that I had run into I shared with you guys the story of the listener from Arkansas, the watcher of the show, who was up at the game, and he was like, "Hey, Juck." And then as I was going down and he was in my aisle, there was another guy, and he was like, "Hey, Juckonbucks," which was crazy. Two guys in the aisle, watchers of the show, in the aisle that I was sitting in. So I was telling that story to my mom, how nuts that was. And she was like, "Well, did you ask him if they liked the video?" She's very concerned, guys. She's very bothered by the fact that the views and the likes don't match up. So if we could today, just hit the like button for mom. That would be great. By the way, thank you for reaching out. She's doing much, much better. Mom going through recovering from breast cancer, and everything's looking very, very well. So thank you for checking in on her. She's doing awesome. But we got some super chats in here. Let's bring in some super chats. Sean, thank you so much, Sean Krutka. Sean for the 10 says Tennessee came out shirtless and went home winless. If their fans want to convince themselves it was a takeover, then I guess good job losing a home game by 25, which is a really good point. They definitely, there was no point in the game where we got to see them put on. You know what I mean? There was no point in the game. And back to the Herb Street situation and Herb Street talking, there was no point in the game. He had his speech ready, right? He talked all week, 2 weeks in advance. Matter of fact, since Selection Sunday, that Ohio State would be better off with a road game at Neyland Stadium than at home. And he had his speech ready for the first boos that came. If you heard any boos or Tennessee cheering and things weren't looking good for the Buckeyes, he had his speech ready, couldn't wait to give it, never got to give it because they never had a chance to get into it. And that's amazing, awesome, and at the same time, I can totally get with the people that are just irritated as hell. Happy to see that, but dude, where has this been? And why have you not been coaching like this all year? So I get both sides. Totally get it. But no, they did not have a reason to show off their home field advantage. Woo-Boo says, Woo-Boo, thank you so much for the super chat. Does a natty absolve Day of his sins? Look, to me, the national championship and the rivalry game are two separate entities. They're two separate things. And it's what makes being an Ohio State fan or a Michigan fan special is you have an opportunity every year to win that rivalry game and get yourself a great sense of accomplishment, a feeling of a successful season. And those wins should come much more often than national championships. National championships, it's the ultimate prize in the sport. And since we won our first one in 1942, we have averaged one every 10 years. So something that comes around once a decade, obviously, is a massive prize. But we don't want to wait once a decade to have a season that feels like a successful season. We can get that success every time we beat our rival. You go 10-2, you beat your rival. At the end of the year, you'd play your bowl game like that. That always felt like a successful season. It still feels like a successful season to me when we beat our rival and maybe we would go to the 14 playoff, lose the first game. That sucks. We need to figure out how to get over that hump, but that's a successful season. It was a season that gave you a lot of satisfaction. So two separate entities winning a national championship. If anybody is calling for him to be fired after that, at that point, now you and I are just I can't even see where you're coming from. I get the frustration and I feel it too. And it's infuriating when it comes to the game, but no, you can't fire a national championship winning coach, nor should you want to. At that point, you just root him on and try to help him as much as you can to figure out how to do what he needs to do to win the rivalry game. That's where I stand on it. But even if you were to get to that game, and it's interesting, a lot of the Ohio State fans all year coming in, or all offseason coming into the year, had said, like, if Ryan Day loses the game, he better get to the national championships. What they said all year, all offseason. I was on several shows talking to a lot of different people, and I was defending that. I was saying, no, there's no chance you fire him after this year. You got to give him 2 years of buy-in, and you got to give him 2 years of buy-in at this point, because he's done so many changes to the organization. He's given up play calling. He's changed the way he's constructing a roster. And because he's made these changes, I think in a way, he's not hit a full reset button, but I feel like it's proper to give him some grace and let him get 2 years with his new system in place, because it is a new system. Giving up play calling was huge, and there will probably be some a learning curve in his first year of doing that. And I think you should definitely give him 2 years of grace. But everybody who wanted, was very irritated with him coming into the season was saying, look, you lose the game, you better get to the national championship. Some were saying you better win, but most were saying you better get there. And to their credit, all those people that were saying that are still saying, now here you are, you've lost the game. And even in that emotional time period, that 3 weeks between the game and between Tennessee, they were still saying, no, you got to get to the national championship game to buy me back in. And, to be clear, the fans don't fire people per se, though they have a lot of sway. And I promise you that scene shook the athletic department at the shoe, because if that is, this is what can happen when you keep someone on staff that has lost the fan base. Those ticket dollars are real. But a lot of those people, I'm very happy they stayed consistent with what they're talking about. But no, the fan base isn't in charge of firing, but all the people coming out, and Fowler and Herb Street said it on the broadcast. Fowler even said that, the fan base doesn't do that, and the athletic department, and they support him. They say they support him. Ross Bjork is the same guy that came out and said he supports Jimbo Fisher right before he fired Jimbo Fisher, because you have to say that. You don't know where they stand, which is my point. But hell yeah, man, it doesn't absolve him of his sins, but he's not going anywhere, nor should he. If he wins a national championship, we're going to be on cloud 9, guys. Thomas Ridley, thanks so much, buddy. Juck, an overreaction? No, the coaches had not maximized the talent consistently throughout the year. And I totally respect where he's coming from, and I agree with him. You did not maximize the talent. They showed you on Saturday night what this team could have been all year, and they chose to run this offense at the speed of a snail and not open it up like that. And I have racked my brain all year trying to figure out what it is they're trying to do with this. Why are they trying to do this? Ryan Day's answers have not made sense. It does not make sense to say, I'm going to slow down all this talent that I've acquired. Hard battles, man. You look back at the recruitment of JJ, the recruitment of Emeka, bringing in Quinshawn, the recruitment of Trey. Like, you look at all these recruitment battles, and like, what did you do this for? To slow it down? You've got a mismatch against everybody you go against, man. Let this kid sling it around and let's see what we got. We're talking about a guy who was the most consistent passer outside of Dylan Gabriel the entire season. And I understand what Thomas is saying. The only answer I can come up with is he was trying to change the identity of the team. So I get it. Thomas says, X-Lax works wonders. Loosen up and let it flow. Thanks for the super chat, buddy. Appreciate you. Sean Rollins, a new Menace to Sports member. Thank you, buddy. Buckeye Bubba thinks that Herb Street is a boob. Tyler Jonas, what a beautiful game. Restored some Buckeyes, as well as being, I realized a lot of fans don't want Dave fired. They actually like him as the coach. They just know we have to beat Teton. A natty helps him. Without a doubt, guys. I mean, I think a lot of people who feel over that past 3 weeks, a win today feels great, right? You won this game in wonderful fashion. The rest of the country feels quite a bit different about Ohio State, and it fills you up with pride. And if we're talking about a natty, let's go over this in our heads. We will have beaten Oregon, which is getting this feeling again, and then potentially beaten Texas, and then a national championship game. After 4 of those games, I just put yourself in that position. Like, you are now feeling on top of the world with the national championship. This whole tenor goes away. Nothing's going to change the Michigan issue, which is clearly an issue at this point. But that's not going to change until the next time you play them. But absolutely, everybody's going to be on cloud 9. Our buddy Kyle, what an incredible game. Tennessee got exposed for being overrated. Maybe it's time to admit the SEC strength is overinflated by them being overinflated in the rankings. And this is, the chicken or the egg argument, basically. Like, if you rank them all at the beginning of the season and they're all playing ranked teams, well, they lose a game. Well, they lost to a ranked team, so we're not going to drop them back too far. And they're just consistently in the rankings, 6 or 7 or 8 of them. So are they overrated? A lot of people will point to, well, if you look at the talent acquisition and the investment in football, you're going to give that team the benefit of the doubt over in that conference that has many more of those teams, the benefit of the doubt over teams from other conferences. And this kind of goes into the selection committee, right? When you go out after game 1 and game 2 and you see Indiana get destroyed by Notre Dame, then you see SMU get destroyed at Penn State. Everybody who's coming out who was in favor of teams like South Carolina or Alabama, 9-3 SEC teams getting in over the SMUs and the Indianas, and saying, good job, committee. Look what you've done. Thanks for entertaining us. You could have had entertaining games with these guys if you put them in. And it was just driving me absolutely insane. At number 1, blowouts were happening a lot in the 4-team playoff. So to think that we were going to come in to a 12-team playoff and not have blowouts was obviously ridiculous. Of course, we're going to have blowouts in the 12-team playoff in the first round. There's not 12 teams that are national championship worthy. So when you get those teams at the back end, the SMUs, the Indianas, and they're playing teams that are true national championship contenders, of which Notre Dame and Penn State are, in my opinion, yes, there's going to be blowouts when those teams are playing at home in front of their home crowds, without a doubt. Get used to it, is what I would have to say to those folks. Then we see Tennessee come into Ohio State and get dominated in a way that was more thorough than Indiana got dominated and SMU got dominated, in my opinion. That was the most thorough domination of the weekend, took place in Columbus. Ohio State dominated Tennessee in every facet of the game, from the coaching staff down to the ball boy, dominated. And all of a sudden, I don't hear it anymore. Like, it's just stupid. It's stupid. So I agree with the decisions that the committee made. However, there's a part of me that wanted the committee to send a message. Now, it would not have been fair to me because I am you have to have the resume. You have to earn your way into a playoff, right? It's about meritocracy. It's not about what we think will be the best game, because when you go back to best, and I hate the word best, I hate it, because what is best? What does it always resort back to? It resorts back to a couple of arguments. It resorts back to usually talent composite. And if we want to do that, power rankings as well, power rankings, you know how they do that? Usually talent. We can do this at the beginning of the year. We can pick the 12 most talented teams at the beginning of the year. And those are the teams that we always resort back to when we say best. It doesn't matter if it's a team that's cooking with gas. Well, they're not as good as this team that's lost 3 games, because look at the players they have. Look at the guys they have up front. Look at those offensive linemen. That team can't compete with those guys. And it's always, that's why I hate the word best. I can't stand it. Like, you need to earn your way into a playoff. It's about what you do. Now, certainly we should be looking at everyone's schedules very critically. And you can't even say anymore an SEC schedule or a Big Ten schedule, because when with the conferences expanding, when you look at the Big Ten, Ohio State's Big Ten schedule and Indiana's Big Ten schedule look nothing alike. Texas's SEC schedule look nothing like Georgia's SEC schedule. So you can't even say that anymore. You do need to critically look at each one of these schedules. But ultimately, I think the committee got it right. The issue that we have, that we will not have in 2 years when they change this, is the issue of the stupid buys. So if we look at the next round, we're going to have more blowouts. Like that's not even a debate. We're going to have more blowouts in the next round. But if we look at what would have happened if they would have seeded this properly, and when they changed this format in 2016, it will be seeded properly 1 through 12, 1 through 14, because there will be 2 more. But if we look at what would have happened in this scenario and start at the 8-9 matchup, all right, that's probably going to be a good game between Indiana and Boise. And then they're going to go play Oregon. We'll see the blowout probably in the second round in that matchup every year. But if we look at the 5-12, Notre Dame versus Clemson, the winner of that game would have gone, I mean, that would have probably been a good game. They would have gone and played Penn State, another good game. If we look up top right, Ohio State versus Arizona State, maybe Ohio State blows them out, but then you got a good game in the second round, Ohio State and Texas. Go to the bottom, Tennessee beats SMU. That might be a blowout, but now Tennessee goes and plays Georgia, and now you got a good game. If we look at what's coming up, the next round of this current system, I think we're going to see Penn State blow out Boise State. That's what I think. And I think we're going to see Texas blow out Arizona State. And should that happen, let's say we get good games between Ohio State and Oregon and Notre Dame and Georgia. Now we're looking at the first 8 games of the playoff. 6 games of those 8 will have been decided by 2 touchdowns or more. That's the Clemson, Texas. That was 2 touchdowns, but the majority of them were blowouts. If we see 2 more, 6 of 8, not incredibly entertaining. And we just need to come to grips with the fact that what we've done by stretching this to 12 and then soon enough to 14 is we've essentially made this now look like March Madness. In the first and second round, we want to see upsets. We want to see competitive games, but a lot of times we're just going to accept that there's going to be a lot of blowouts. And that's what we've done here. So those teams will try to continue to get closer, and maybe the gap will close more and more with the transfer portal and people understanding that they need to get their money up. And maybe we'll see a little less blowouts or a little more competitive games. I don't really think so. I think with 12 or 14 teams, we're always going to see blowouts in the first round. And you need to earn your way in, which I believe Indiana definitely earned their way into the playoff, despite after seeing him, honestly, guys, play Michigan. When we saw him play Michigan, I knew right there, okay, this team is legit. It's a good team, but they're not going to be able to compete against the big dogs. Like, it was blatantly obvious that they didn't have the skill to do that. They didn't have the bigs to do it. They could not do it. But nonetheless, a good team that earned their way in, I thought. An interesting dichotomy when we talk about Ohio State, Tennessee. You look at Tennessee, Ohio State talking about wanting to fire their coach, a lot of the fan base. Tennessee, after Philip Fulmer, Tennessee was on top of the world. Tennessee, the 9th greatest program in the history of college football, kind of like the poster child for what it looks like when you make a couple of bad hires, how bad a program can be set back. And we look at the Ohio State fan base and support, and we say, well, the odds are that's never going to happen at Ohio State because we've never seen that happen in 100 years, and it's happened everywhere else. Are we impervious? Are we recession proof? But then you look at Tennessee, you look at the way they traveled. Now, granted, they did make some really bad hires, but it's certainly like the cautionary tale, right? It does look like a cautionary tale. And that is what a lot of people who are on the side of, look, there's nobody out there that makes them feel comfortable to say like, yeah, okay, I'll get rid of what we got if we can go to that. And I understand their point of view. And certainly when you see Tennessee, it is interesting that is, the cautionary tale that that many people go with. And that is the team that the Buckeyes just played and beat like a drum. They beat the SEC badge like a drum. And it's because they compiled the best roster in sports history with the most money ever. So Clay Travis got under a couple people's skin, including Ross Bjork and Brian Hartline. I want to show you what he had to say. So he tweeted out, Tennessee fans have taken over huge parts of Ohio Stadium. It sounds like a home game with Rocky Top playing. And Hartline came back with, no, it didn't. It never sounded like that. I do really appreciate the effort, though. Buckeye Nation left no doubt. So here's the video that Clay tweeted. So that video is standing directly in front of the north stands where their band was and where their 3,000 ticket allotment was. And outside of those 3,000 tickets, they were very much consolidated right there. That was like their section. And then he spans to the right a little bit, that cameraman. And this is my video looking at from a little further the video that Clay's just tweeted. So I'm further on the west side looking at that. Now, the interesting thing is Hartline wouldn't have known how loud that was because it was pregame, and during the game, you couldn't really hear him because they had nothing to celebrate or be happy about. But I will say it definitely was resonating throughout the stadium, and it was infuriating. But Travis fired back at Hartline in a pretty rude way. He said, congrats on the win, but if I were you, I'd be worried about the 10,000s of your season ticket holders who sold their tickets to Tennessee fans because they don't believe in your boss. Hope your contract is guaranteed. Merry Christmas, which is just a pretty nasty shot, man. And Hartline said to him, appreciate the congrats. I see no reason to worry. I do appreciate your advice, though. I was impressed with the Tennessee fan base. Merry Christmas. Ross Bjork hopped in. Where's Ross? Ross said, not once, never did the visiting fans take anything. Buckeye Nation was on point. What was the Mark Twain quote? The reports are greatly exaggerated. Now, listen, I was there. The reports were not exaggerated. No, it was not a takeover. But yeah, all the reports of the numbers, the most commonly used number, I would say, is 30 to 35,000. I think it was pretty spot on. And had Tennessee gotten any momentum in that game, it would have been really embarrassing and very, very bad. Riz chat, free look, man, get out of here with that. Yeah, Clay's a moron. Clay's a big Tennessee fan. He went to Vanderbilt, but he's a Tennessee fan. He's a troll. He loves trolling Ohio State in the Big Ten. RDB says Ohio State taking the field in the laser lights with the bell was just chilling. It was awesome. Those lights were such an immediate upgrade. Steely Matt says, Rocky Top, you'll always be 10-3 to me. That's great. I can't get the song out of my head, though, guys. I got to admit, it is a very catchy tune, and it has stayed with me for a couple of days now. I did listen to the Osborne Brothers, Rocky Top. Now, I Googled that. That is the most common version that you hear where someone's singing it. I always thought it was a woman, but it's the Osborne Brothers. I wasn't familiar with them. They're a bluegrass band, which bluegrass, that's kind of catchy. I've never really listened to it. Anyway, they're the ones that sing Rocky Top, and I thought it was a woman. It's not a woman, guys. It's a man. Keith Greenman thinks that the Irish are going to dog walk Georgia. Notre Dame is the best team in the playoffs. They're ridiculous. They got first-round NFL draft picks at every position. Every position. Now, that's a man confident in his team. The line opened up Notre Dame -1.5, so favored to beat Georgia. It has since been bet the other way. Georgia now the favorite in that game by 1.5. I actually feel like that's a coin flip game. That's a really close game. Bill B says getting blown out in the playoffs doesn't mean teams don't deserve, and he's absolutely right. Remember 31-0. JJ says if Oregon does run away with this, I don't want folks bashing me for saying it can happen because of our offensive line. Absolutely. It can get away. Morning, Greeny. Dave says, I think we can work the Ducks secondary. I think he's right. Yeah, Harmon is a really good player. I wish we'd have got him. Andy thinks that Nico was the only bright spot for that team. He kept fighting and was quite elusive. I was so impressed with him and the way our guys kept overrunning him. That cutback, I mean, he doesn't look like a fantastic athlete on TV. Boy, seeing him in person, I was just stunned. Like, wow, this kid's got it. And he was a fight. He was getting lit up. There was a point early in the game where I was like, this dude is just shook. Just getting smashed. So props to him. Really cool. Terry says, Juck, did you notice that Carnell Tate was open twice over the middle for touchdowns, but Will missed him, throwing to Emeka and G. Scott on the right side? Not complaining, though. Will played great. Yeah. You know, when you're at the game, obviously you're seeing the all 22. That happened a lot, which is both good and bad. Like, it's not great that he's missing wide open guys and choosing to go to someone else, but it just kind of highlights the scheme and the wide receivers, how good they are. They were open all night. They really were. And that's a great thing. And that contributes to Will Howard's excellent accuracy. Steely asks, is Tennessee's defense better than Oregon's? By every metric, yeah. You know, but matchups and styles make fights, so we'll see. I thought Oregon's defense now has Jordan Birch back. Buckeyes did not have to go against him and Uyunglele at the same time. That makes a difference for sure. Plus Harmon in the middle. I mean, that's a tough defensive line. Really tough. Dago says Tennessee is overrated now because they played us, which is right. Yeah, like, I don't think Tennessee's really overrated. I think that they were appropriately rated, but you do got, I think, further to the point that was being made was the SEC as a whole gets the benefit of the doubt, and then they win and lose to each other, and it's a win against a ranked team or a loss against a ranked team, and either way, they look good, which is what frustrates a lot of people, and I get it. Jake does not think Oregon wants to see us again. I definitely don't think they wanted to see us in their first game. They would have definitely preferred to have a little warm-up game, and they deserved it. You deserve it when you're a 13-0 team. Whatever. We'll deal with it. Juck, I wonder what David Sanders was thinking during the game. David Sanders was on the sidelines for the Vols. David Sanders. Did I show you guys the picture or the little video of David Sanders in his Vols uniform? Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. My gosh, man. This kid is one impressive looking athlete for a left tackle. Impressive looking athlete for a left tackle. By the way, our little buddy Clark got to go to the game. And shout out to Bo Camaro. Shout out to J-Peth and Chloe, Clark's parents. They all got to go to the game. They looked like they had an amazing time. Clark got loaded down with a ton of gear and an awesome experience for all of them, which was so cool to see. So that was great. I don't know if they got in it. I don't know if they were there for the game. They were there during the game or pre-game. Colin says, Juck, what did you think about the drone show going unannounced? And also, I was disappointed in the orange in the club seats in the lower bowl. That's corporate season ticketing. So what he's referring to is the drone show, which we were talking. The drone show was talked about forever. Like, it's going to be the biggest drone show in the history of college football. Now, I don't know if that was just Twitter rumor or if that was actually announced by the school, but my wife was quite excited for the drone show. She's not really a football fan, but she loves me, so she enjoys football with me. And she was really looking forward to this drone show. Now, I thought it would be pregame. It wasn't. Then halftime comes about, and I figured, all right, after the band, we're going to see the drone show. No drone show. And she was salty. So I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. It's not happening then. Like, if it doesn't happen at halftime, it's not happening. So it might have been late third, early fourth quarter. They pull up the drone show, which wasn't particularly impressive. And they didn't say anything about it on the PA, like nothing. So what I think about it is they got a ways to go, but they're on their way, and that's what matters. They definitely got a ways to go. As far as the club seats in the lower bowl, corporate season ticketing, I mean, yeah, it was infuriating. It was infuriating. There was a lot that was infuriating about that game, and that was one of the things. But thanks for bringing it up, bro. There we go, Rich. He says the last one was David Sanders. The next one, Naeem Offord. And we can add a pile of dudes for the next one with the amount of recruits who Gibson says, everyone says that was a perfect game from Ohio State, but it wasn't. They could have played even better. That game could have been 63-0 very easily. The Bucs still got some more for them. And he's right. They actually did slow it down at one point, and I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Just keep it rolling. They did slow it down. Man, I'm just a go guy when you got these amount of weapons. Like you just roll, just go. And clearly Will is comfortable playing like that. Like very comfortable playing like that. So is what it is. You get the big dub, and you got to literally see all 4 quarterbacks in the game. And it was pretty interesting watching the telecast after the game. Holly Rowe talking about Devin Brown and said something to the effect of Ryan Day was going to figure out who was going to be the backup quarterback this week. And I find that really interesting, as Devin has said he's going to stick around for the playoff run. And I know that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day wanted him to and asked him to do that. Why then are we talking to Holly Rowe about we'll decide what's going to happen this week? That's interesting. That's interesting, and it makes me feel like we are not going to see Devin Brown for the entirety of this. Steely says, Juck, isn't your 1-year anniversary coming up? It is. Juckonbucks will be 1 year. I'll have to find the exact date, but it's sometime after the Missouri game, so maybe late January or early February. I'll let you guys know, though. Saying through a bounce pass. Yes, he did. Hey, guys, my thumbnail just came, or my thumbs up came. Please like the video, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not, whether you're watching on Menace or on Juck on Sports. Please subscribe to both. It would be awesome. We'd really appreciate that. It helps us grow, find other Buckeye fans and other college football fans who might be interested in the stuff we work really hard on, which is college football and college football only over here at Juckonbucks. Sometimes Chris talks about the NBA or basketball or baseball or something. I don't know why. I mean, who would care about any of that stuff? But just college football here. But you always want to listen to Chris anyway. That's my man. Of course, Zach, my guys. And Zach did a call-in show yesterday, which I listened to on the ride home, and it was awesome listening to those callers. Check out the call-in show that he did yesterday. Just listen to people just kind of let it all out. It was fun. It was fun because the last time he did that, I think it was a pissed off call-in show. I don't know, man. I don't know how this is working with these guys. Andy says DB would have to enroll at his new school in 2025. What's January 24th? That's the date that he needs to enroll by. Andy's going to cut Julian Saying a break, being a Southern California freshman coming out in the cold. He'll remember that pass. Yeah, that was terrible, man. That was a terrible ball. What's up, Robert Rogers? Robert Rogers says, why don't people realize that Oregon beat us by 1 point? That included Josh Simmons being hurt and a PI call on offense against us, an onside kick, and a sneak bending the rules play. Go Bucks. All that's correct. All that's correct. But don't forget, we are the favorite in the game. Buckeyes have opened as the favorite. So, the experts do, in fact, expect Ohio State will be the winner in this game. But that Oregon team is damn tough, and they are rested up. They've had a long time to prepare for both Ohio State and Tennessee, and Dan Lanning did come out and say that they have been preparing for both teams. Obviously, they've played before, and this is going to be one hell of an interesting matchup. Gino with the super chat for $4.99. Thank you so much, buddy. Gino's an Oregon fan. Very impressive win. Excited for another classic. Best new rivalry of realignment. There is no doubt about that. Some people could say, make an argument for Georgia, Texas. And you could see that they played in the regular season, and then Georgia went out to Texas, beat them in the regular season. Then they played again in the Big 12 championship, and they could potentially meet in the national championship. Now that's not going to happen. The the Oregon Ohio State side of the bracket. That is Oregon or Ohio State coming out of that bracket, right? It's got to be. It's got to be. But I agree with them. I think without a doubt, Oregon Ohio State, the best new rivalry of realignment. And it's an awesome new rivalry. And I really enjoy the Oregon fans much more than fans in the other rivalry. There are some that I like from the other rivalry, the big rivalry. Arcbuck says Juckeyes have a very Midwestern feel. There's no doubt about that. Very Midwestern feel here. It is interesting that we've got this conference with the Great Northwest, right? Like there's not much culturally similar between the Oregon and Washington folks to USC folks. Even they're very different, to Midwesterners, to Rutgers. I mean, vastly different areas of the country. Arcbuck says the Nike Bowl. So I bought my tickets last night, guys. And we're talking I am in section 6L. Section 6L. So if anybody hasn't bought their tickets yet, come join me in section 6L. Section 6L is the Oregon bench is going to be in front of me. Right, not right in front of me, but I'm on that side because that's the section where you're looking at the mountains. The other section, you're looking back the other way. The other side, you're looking at the press box. You don't want that. You want to be looking at the San Gabriel Mountains, the sunset. Like that's what it's all about, right? The grass is always so much greener in the Rose Bowl. This is going to be awesome, dude. It's like next week. By the way, I can't believe Christmas is this week. This has really snuck up on me when you're so deep into work and football. Like that just totally snuck up on me. Oh, what's up, Caveman? Thank you so much for the super chat, my brother. Caveman says, hey, Shannon Sharp just went off on Herb Street. Now, Herb Street called out First Take on that broadcast. I'm sure you guys heard. He said something like, yeah, First Take. They're firing him. They already fired him. But there he is, wearing his hat on the sideline. So I'm sure what Caveman is referring to is Shannon Sharp having something to say back to Kirk. And he just wants to make enemies lately, it feels like. Ty Glover says Ryan Day is a walking fired man regardless. I just, are you a Buckeye fan, Ty? Oh, Andrew says Section 6 is behind OSU's bench. Well, that's fantastic news. Are you going to sit by me? Blue Wolverine, thank you for the super chat. Blue Wolverine, impressive showing. It almost seemed like we were watching a completely different team than 3 weeks ago. It absolutely did. And that is a whole lot of people's frustrations. My man, Drew, what's up, brother? Yeah, Dago says Christmas is literally in 2 days. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. It's really snuck up on me, and it's a good thing that I don't have to cook anything this year, because it would not be I have not planned properly. I have not planned properly at all. Hey, what are the Duck fans, Duck Eyes? Do we know what you guys are wearing for the Rose Bowl? Are you going to actually wear like green this year? Are you going to wear green when you match up? Because I want to see the traditional Ohio State and Oregon uniforms. A lot of people would ask, like, what the hell is a traditional Oregon uniform? What I'd like to see, I think, is that brand new green one that you guys got this year. That would be the best one. All right. Andrew says, I think it's the chrome helmet, the green jersey, and the white pants. Chrome helmet, man. You guys always let me down. Always let me down. I just wanted to see green uniforms against Ohio State's uniforms when we went out there for the game. Instead, it's black. Could barely even see the numbers. I'm getting older. My eyes aren't fantastic to begin with. So that was obnoxious. And now chrome helmets. Yeah, I'm with Arcbuck. Arcbuck wants to see the 90s on both sides. Like, that would be great. Oregon's tradition with uniforms is there's no tradition. We were constantly evolving. Like, that's their mantra. And that's cool. I get it. But, Ohio State and Oregon have matched up in Rose Bowl. You know what I'd like to see? Terrell Pryor. That era Buckeyes, that team played Oregon in the Rose Bowl, whatever the hell year that was. Those uniform combinations would be cool. Whoops. Drew finally made it live. Yes, man. I've never seen you live. Something positive. Finally on offense. Now, Drew is a X's and O's guru. And for those that didn't believe we had a load of talent and Howard can actually throw the ball, they saw it on Saturday. Drew, plug your show down here where everybody can find you. We're talking about a dude who is an absolute stud breaking down film. Offensive scheme. He's a scheme guy. Impressive stuff. Here we go. Joe F. We got a Duck Eye in here. My wife and I are in section 9 for the Rose Bowl. Go Ducks. Heck yeah. My buddy Ryan Winters on Sports Chat 503. He's kind of like the Oregon version of Juckonbucks, right? He's got a setup like behind him. It's really cool. But it's Duck stuff instead of Buck stuff. And I'll be on his show either Thursday or Friday. He's definitely going to the Rose Bowl. I'm going to the Rose Bowl. I talked to some other buddies that are going out. And we're all going out, man. Let me know if you're going out. This is beautiful. Buck Rational says that those Oregon helmets, those chrome Oregon helmets, are going to look like broken mirrors when Cody cracks a few of them. Man, was that cool. Thanks, buddy. Mark Lewis says Oregon is a reflection of their coaching, and he always thinks he is smarter than everyone else, but he may have hit a brick wall and doesn't even know it yet. Look, he's a cocky dude. There's no doubt about it. Dan Lanning is a cocky dude. And so far this season, he's definitely backed it up. Drew says this was all on day. Wait all year for the real game plan for fear of a regular season burnout. I don't get this strategy. Why not scheme this all year? And I think this is kind of what you and I have been talking about all year, how incredibly frustrating this was to watch them do what they did all year. When you've got two minds like Chip and Day with the ability to go out and do this and tweak this for every opponent, and instead they chose not to. And it's just one of those things, like, you guys are ridiculous here. What are we doing? Ooh, yeah. Sonny lit up a couple. Oh my gosh, that one hit. Woo, boy. That was beautiful. And that was like, man, I've been waiting to see that out of Sonny forever. That was so great. Woody says, Juck, was Nico just not throwing to guys, or were the wide receivers locked down? Hard to see on TV, but Nico got loose a couple of times and didn't throw it. They were so locked down. So locked down. And the Tennessee fans are all talking about we need to upgrade at the wide receiver position. After bragging all preseason and all into the early parts of the year about how great Squirrel, White, and all their fellas were. Now they want to upgrade. Oh my gosh, yes, that dude Jelani laid out. That was right in front of me. That was awesome. Mika's 4'11" and 120 pounds. So we're gonna put her in the suitcase to take her to the Rose Bowl because she's just a little lady. Yeah. Did you see what Jelani did to that player when they thought Will fumbled? And I thought it was a fumble too. I thought it was a fumble because of his reaction. That was pretty awesome. All right, friends. I think I got all the super chats. We're at about an hour and 20, and I certainly enjoy the hell out of our conversations, but I do have some work to do. So we're going to go a couple of more minutes here. Then we're going to shut this puppy down. Please do like the video. Not for me, guys, not for me, for mom. Do it for mom. Also subscribe for mom. Do it for mom. I'd appreciate that so much. Howard was throwing darts, boy. You know what? If you guys could just watch Howard's ball, which is, a normal college quarterback's balls versus Nico's balls right next to each other. Like, what a difference. If we're talking like 30 yards downfield, Will's is, 20 feet in the air. Nico's is like 10 feet in the air, just ropes. I love seeing that kind of stuff. I love watching quarterbacks throw on air, like especially one with a sick arm. I love watching them warm up and just watching the differences between quarterbacks like on the same team, the quarterback 1, 2, 3, and 4, of which I've seen all these guys throw before on our team, but Julian Sayin is like ridiculous compared to everybody else in that room. And then he comes out and he throws that. And it's just like, yeah, you can have the greatest arm in the world, but you can't one hop it to a wide open feller. You know what I'm saying? I was very disappointed. Buck Rational, thanks, Chuck. You made my morning. I was very happy that I made your morning. You guys made my morning. This is always an incredibly fun day. And by the way, one of our bigger shows we've ever had for some reason. I don't know what's going on this Monday. Everybody's really excited, but a huge live showing here, which is always fun. Megamax says, I do not like our secondary against Oregon again. That's also another matchup where I see Dylan Gabriel and those wide receivers cooking us again. If our D-line can't get pressure on him, we lose again. Well, a couple of things. There's no doubt that game needs to be a high-scoring game for Ohio State to win. You're going to have to put up points because Oregon's going to put up points. But let's also remember, and this is another thing, like if you are irritated with this regime, this game right here highlights both the good and the bad. You went into that Oregon game. You weren't getting any pressure on anybody. You go into the Oregon game just thinking, hey, our guys are going to win. Your defensive line can't do anything, nothing. You come out of the Oregon game, you tweak things for the next 3 successive weeks. We got a bye week right after, but 3 successive opponents. You're tweaking things to get more pressure. And then it looks amazing. Like, wow, look at all this pressure we're getting. And you're both proud of the coaching staff for doing the things necessary to get that pressure and then making it work. And you're happy that that game in the middle of the season was like a blessing in disguise. But you're also irritated that they went into that game not knowing that ahead of time, when all of us morons who know nothing like they do, we're talking about it the whole season heading into the Oregon game. Like, that's just another thing that irritates the crap out of me. And it's the same thing we just went through with the Tennessee game right here. Why are you running like the 90th slowest offense out of 134 offenses in the country when you've got better weapons than everybody else? It makes no sense. However, now we've had that game. Now we get to go play them in the playoffs, and they're going to have lots of things cooking to get some pressure. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is going to be just a ridiculous game. I cannot wait. I can't believe I'm going to watch it in person. It's going to be amazing. But I'm going to go out a couple of days early, and this time, because it's not so cold, I'm going to try to do some kind of remote show when I'm out there. Maybe talk to some of the Buckeyes and the Ducks fans outside of the stadium, and have a little fun. Have a little fun that way. Maybe do some live shows. Actually, I won't be able to do it live because I won't have the bandwidth to stream it live, I don't think. Maybe I will, but when I try to hook my computer up, like to the phone, 4G, like it's not enough upload speed to stream it out to you guys. So would that work? Like if I went live on my phone? I don't know, but I did buy a little remote microphone, 2 of those, so I can talk to some Buckeyes and some Ducks fans when I'm out there at the Rose Bowl. Andrew says I can try using my hotspot. All right, we'll give it a shot. All right, my friends, that'll do me for today. I appreciate you all so much. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday. Enjoy it. A lot of things to be happy about in Buckeye world and college football in general. These playoffs have been fantastic so far, despite the blowouts. We're going to have that. It's an awesome thing watching this bracket come together. The next step, here we go. We're heading into it. We're going to the Rose Bowl. I can't wait. I'll talk to you guys soon. Juckonbucks out. Hey, it's Juck.
And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
Start